is Dorchevella, Bray. The next station is Bray. Shut standards. This is the last stop. Chatham and Varna the Poodle. Please mind the gap.
Okay, so before we go anywhere, consternation and disquiet were rife thanks to an item in our first episode in which an interview carried out by me with Brian White, he of the Coolin Historical Society, included a claim by Brian that there were, at one time, 6 bandstands on Bray seafront, right?
We were contacted by somebody on our Facebook page, Brian Lennon from Bray, did you know, Mark?
Yeah, and he said no. There were only 3.
He said there was never, and he capitalised never more than 3 bandstands.
So I contacted Brian and he said he wasn't having this. There were definitely 6 bandstands on the seafront at one time. And so I got him on the phone to clarify.
The easy way to go through them is from number 1, which was a wooden bandstand that was up at Naylor's Cove on the flat section just beside Naylor's Bridge.
Okay.
And that was there for regattas only.
And that was a wooden structure? That was a temporary structure?
A wooden structure, never a permanent structure.
Okay. Okay, number 2 then, please.
Number 2 is outside the Esplanade, which was a wooden structure and replaced with a permanent structure and removed in the late 60s early 70s. And that was called the afternoon bandstand.
Okay.
Number 3 is outside the Martello and is called the evening bandstand. It was a wooden structure originally. Then a bandstand was acquired from the industrial exhibition held in Herbert Park in 1907, and it was opened in 1908. The supports were replaced in 1926, and then in 1993 a new roof was put on it. Okay,
number 4 then, please.
Number 4 is outside the White Gates at the top of the seafront. That was the railway gates that were known as the White Gates, and that was the morning bandstand, and it was a wooden structure only and not replaced after 1907.
Okay.
We're down to number 5 now, which was a wooden bandstand, which was located almost where the car park is now, outside what was then Breslin's Hotel or the Royal Marine Hotel. Mr. Breslin had a big Union Jack flying on us in 1896, and the bandstand was burned down, and he built an extension to the Royal Marine Hotel, and that had a flat roof on it where he brought out bands to play. So they were private bandstands, not public bandstands. And that was number 5 and number 6. There's one other,
go on,
which is at the People's Park. There was originally plans to put a roof on it, and if you go down to the bandstand, you'll see the holes where it was for the pillars, but they were never erected. So there you are, that's how the 7 bandstands of Bray.
Well, not to be confusing matters even more, we've now got 7 bandstands to worry about. Bandstand gate. Well, there you go, problem solved. With stories from a seaside town, welcome to Bray Talking Heads. So it's Mark,
Pat,
Leah,
and welcome back again. Okay, so we've solved the problem with the bandstands and we move swiftly along. We did get some good feedback to the first episode, and one of the things that came up was a slightly negative thing, and that was the intention for the YouTube video was that it would just really act as wallpaper, the shots of Bray. But in fact, people seem to be quite seduced by the imagery that was there, and were complaining about the fact that the logo was blocking out the footage. So I've rejigged that slightly, and in this episode, you'll be able to see all of those lovely shots of Bray in all their glory.
Yeah, great. Just on the background to the podcast, YouTube is the number 1 podcasting platform in the world now. It's unbelievable. If you're on YouTube Music, you can put the app into the background. So I'm very intrigued about if people have it on as YouTube, you have to watch it. Therefore, Mark, you have to make sure we have something to watch apart from
it's my
something
job.
to listen.
Okay, my job.
Yeah.
Well, actually, interestingly,
well, you're good at it. So
interestingly, you know, if there is pertinent footage or stills available for a story, then certainly we'll put them up on that episode, you know. Okay, so what other feedback have we been getting?
Well, I've been stopped on the main street a couple of times, and once on the Florence Road and a couple of times on the Queensbury Road, to say that people have enjoyed it, that they have found it interesting, that they have learned things about Bray that they didn't know. And some of them were Brayites forever and ever, and some of them were new people to the town. And one lady in particular said, "This is wonderful, I've just moved in." And she said, "And now I'm learning about the town, and she said, it's joyous to listen to." Because she said it's all bad news at the moment, and then you go on to your podcast and it's just lovely listening.
That's nice to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been hearing good things, and even about ourselves, you know, how we gel on the air or not. All good stuff. And contacted from people abroad, Bray heads, Brayites from abroad, getting in touch to say that they're enjoying the show. The history's proving popular, as are the word on the street from the people in the town. And speaking about this week's episode, there's always criticism that Bray is always about the seafront, okay? And this week we're up on the main street.
One thing, I don't know if there's any truth to the rumour, but apparently there's a Hollywood sign being erected on Bray Head at the moment because of all the filming that's going on in the town.
That wouldn't surprise me
Unbelievable,
at all, to
isn't
be
it?
quite honest with you.
It's not a car park safe because they're parking.
No, my house was actually used, and I'm delighted it was used because they pay well and they take photos of your house as it is. They take everything away so nothing gets broken, and then they put everything back because they have the photos to show how your house was done. I found them very pleasant. I found the crews absolutely excellent, everybody excellent. And this was for BBC. But at the same time, there was 2 other film crews in the town. So one was on Navarre Road, one was on Meath Road, and one was somewhere else, which is quite extraordinary. So Bray is actually going to be very famous without realising it.
And your house, when will it be on the BBC?
It was the Inspector Lindley Mysteries, but I think it's called just Lindley now, right? So it's a revamping of the Inspector Lindley Mysteries. And my house was the villain's house, and they used it because it was so old-fashioned.
Of course it was the villain's.
I had a cooker and an oven that's been there since God's own time, and they were delighted when they saw that. They were like, "Oh, wait till you see this oven." They couldn't get it anywhere else. You know?
Great. I love it. Yeah,
but look, even if you walk down Meath Road at the moment, there is a load of trucks parked. I don't know whose house they're using down there, but they're definitely using a house down there. And what happens is the council gives them permission to park in certain areas when they're filming. You know, the locals usually give out. But in fairness, it's doing the town the world good.
Oh, it has to be.
You know,
it has to be good.
Really is.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people are saying nice things about Bray. This would be the crews that are coming into the town. Now, somebody said to me, "That's not a Bray accent." I said, "Excuse me, that is a Bray accent. I was born and bred in Bray." And I was very insulted. But I said, there's lots of different accents in Bray. It's not like there's certain areas of the country where the accent is very uniform. Whereas I think in Bray, you just never know. Nobody in Bray ever said hello or hi. Do you remember when they said good?
Good. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Loved that.
Yeah.
Good.
Good, yeah. And you knew they were from Bray because they said good.
Yeah, that's it. And there's also a camp for the film crews up at the old Sharing Plough site.
So let's talk about the main street then, lest we be accused of hovering only on the seafront and Bray Head. So this ties in a little bit with something that I'm doing, and I know this is, unashamed promotion of another podcast series that I'm working on at the moment, but it's on BLB, Bray Local Broadcasting, which had its heyday in the 80s from 79 to 88. And I have made a podcast series on it. It's running at the moment. And part of it ties in with Bray Main Street insofar as I did a little piece setting the scene, as it were, for the 70s and 80s. So let's have a quick listen to that.
Bray, at that stage, I used to come in and out of Dublin every day, and I thought it was a very, very country town. Now, I know the people of Bray will go mad, but I felt that I had that atmosphere about it.
In the 70s and 80s, it was a very busy place. The town itself was a really vibrant town, I remember it. I mean, totally different to what it is nowadays, unfortunately. But looking back now, I mean, we had everything in Bray. We had lovely dress shops, we had lovely grocery shops, and all that kind of thing. Very, very vibrant town.
There were less cars around, that was the main thing. I mean, parking wasn't the problem that it's become nowadays. But the main street was certainly a happening place. If you started the credit union at the top of the town and you work your way down, there wasn't an empty shop. There were thriving businesses. There were old family businesses that had been there for generations. People like Lochner's Butchers, Caprani's, Napier's was another good one, Mermaid Florists, and then Gaffney's and Owens. And we actually had 3 hardware stores on the main street at the time because we had Murdoch's or Anvil as it became. We had Mark's, and there was a third one, which was Ledwich's, the wonderful Ledwich's.
There was about 6 grocery shops on the main street. There was shops like Finlater's, there was Pay and Carries, Pay and Takes. There was a few small grocery shops and ourselves. All the shops would close on Wednesday afternoon. And on Sunday, nothing would open on Sunday. Jack Murphy has a small shop up the main street and he would sell cream. That's all. He'd sell cream on Sunday morning. And then there was a fellow called Danny Riley or Chicken Riley. He was a famous newspaper seller. And he used to sell newspapers outside the church. And he sold every newspaper because that was the only place you could get a newspaper. There was no shops open on the main street.
Who would have thunk it? No shops open on the main street on a Sunday. Isn't that unbelievable?
Would be lovely though. You know, if you think about it. I mean, I'm not talking about it from a religious point of view. I'm just talking about it from the point of view of having a day where that's not commercial, that there's no onus on you to go out and buy.
Well, it ain't going to happen. We're not going to go back to those times. We're just not. Yeah. And I should say that was Freddie Morahan there who ran Londis Supermarket on the main street with his brother. And we also heard John Ryan and Hilda Hennessy. They were all part of the BLB program.
So before we continue on with the stories of the main street, Mark, the radio station BLB was born in 1979. So for people that are of our vintage, will probably remember it. Okay, it was the birth of radio in Bray. And there's been a few anniversaries, significant anniversaries, and people have got on about the station, what it meant to them and all. So what's the podcast about?
Well, it's about BLB, believe it or not.
But I mean, like in terms of the people, are they talking about their involvement in the station? Or?
Yeah, largely. I mean, I tried, obviously you're limited by what material is available, off-air material that I could get my hands on. And obviously I was very much involved. I was a founding member of BLB, so I was immersed in the story. So I thought, well, okay, what I'll do is, I've already made a film about BLB, so I had those interviews to draw on. And because I was immersed in the story, I decided, well, I'll take a personal view on this. So it's my personal journey, my personal memories. So it's not the definitive history. It can never be the definitive history unless you've got someone doing lots of research and, you know, you've got lots and lots of resources.
That's not involved as well.
Yeah, precisely.
And you know something, it'll lose its flavour.
Well, also,
to a certain
it's
extent.
your memory of things, you know, how you remember things. So to answer the question, yeah, it's about those that were involved, one or two others who were in its orbit, as it were, and lots and lots of clips. So there's lots and lots of ads from that time, and there's a whole section on all the names of these shops and businesses, largely not there anymore, for the, you know, in the most part. And then there's lots about the outside broadcasts, what the radio meant to people. I hope it'll be of interest.
Yeah.
It's called It's called BLB Sounds from the Past.
And we'll have a link to it in our show notes to get it wherever you get your podcasts, okay? And some of the ads that you've mentioned, we'll put them and dig them up and play them here, Mark. We'll get the old reel-to-reel tape recorder for some episodes. So the main street, Leah, you know, it's a tale of two halves, probably. Let's go back to 2014 when Andrew Ledwich died.
Yes.
He was a very significant person on the main street. Tell us about him.
For anybody in Bray that enjoyed a character, Andrew Ledwich, Mr. Ledwich, we never knew him as Andrew, to be quite honest. We just knew him as Mr. Ledwich, was a person that you would enjoy going into the shop. I remember one time going in and this man came running in. I'm double parked. Can you cut a key for me? And I had literally walked in behind this man, and Mr. Ledwich went, ladies first, and took me aside and did my key first, while this man was peppering to get his key done. So that's the type of character he was, and he had everything. He had everything from a pin to a haystack in the place. Yeah. It was quite extraordinary.
We'll have photographs of the shop and himself on our social accounts. The actual shop is Lebbridge, but there's a name on it. On one side, it's number 3 because it's 3 Main Street Bray, and it has 3 cycles. And then on the other side, it has radios. So radios are very big in when the shop started. So Mark, the shops were renowned for like deliveries and the service compared to today.
Yeah, well, I think every shop had a messenger boy, didn't they? And a bike. Do you remember those bikes they had?
Oh, yeah, with the basket on the front.
Yeah.
My father used to threaten us that if we didn't do well in school, we'd end up being a messenger boy. A messenger boy or a corner boy. They were the 2 things that you could end up being.
How could you end up a corner boy? But anyway.
I know. But he didn't distinguish, you see. That was the great thing in my family. He didn't distinguish.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, like the thing that I remember about the Main Street particularly was that if you went up the Main Street on a Saturday afternoon in Bray, you had to walk on the road because there were so many people on the pavement.
Do you not remember when you were a teenager, that was the place where you kept your eye out for people? Jeannie Mackers, I'd say there was more romances started on Bray Main Street than anywhere else. You know, even after school, the girls would be in their uniforms, the different uniforms would be out there, and you'd be spotting somebody from St. Brendan's, or you'd be spotting somebody from wherever, right, from Prez, you know, and the dreadful grey uniforms from Loretto that made everybody look plain no matter how beautiful you were.
But Pat, you've been to the Main Street with your microphone and recorder and
yeah, I
find out what's going on in the ground.
Last sunny Saturday to find out what was happening on the Main Street, what people thought of the Main Street. So I started by asking people, did they shop in Bray? I see you have a bag here. You must have been shopping in Bray.
I was indeed.
Can you mention the brand?
Pennies, up in Pennies.
Yeah. So what do you think of Pennies?
Yeah, it's good in Pennies. It's my first time. I'm actually not from Bray itself, but it was my first time.
I think it's improved over the years. Yeah, with the new shopping centre just there.
Yeah.
It's a good bit of dereliction still. I think they could improve a lot of the shop fronts, try to encourage more local businesses to set up. You know, some of the tourists walking around, you can only imagine what they're thinking.
It's run down. I mean, the strength of Bray is the seafront, which is much better now than it was 20, 30 years ago. But there are too many cheap kind of retail places, and Bray finds it difficult to sustain more upmarket shops and indeed restaurants.
Do you think there's hope for the Main Street?
Well, I hope so. I've lived here for a long time, so I hope so, but a lot needs to be done.
Dundrum is much better, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah. Like it's all indoors though, isn't it?
In Dundrum, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you want though.
Well, where are you heading? I mean, you're heading up the Thorns Road.
We're going to the larder, then the bakery. We're going in there to get a few cakes.
Oh, no, that's shopping in Bray.
Shopping, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, some nice cakes in there, guys.
Lovely, yeah.
Well, listen, the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
good day.
It has improved since
Pennies
come in.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's only Pennies and Duns, really. I remember years ago, they had City 2, Sasha, it was great.
Yeah.
Now?
Is there not enough shops for women?
No, definitely not. Yeah. Well, Pennies, as I say, you can see an improvement since Pennies came in.
Hi. Hi, yeah, I'm from the Bray Talking Heads podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm asking people about the shops in Bray.
Okay.
Have you noticed any big difference? You're in a shop here, the phone shop. Have you noticed a big difference since Pennies came?
Definitely. There's more footfall.
Yeah.
There's more football.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More of a vibrancy around the town.
Is there?
Yeah.
Like more
busier.
Busier.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's a good story then, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And
definitely.
How's the phones doing?
Doing really well. Yeah, it's a bit quiet today.
Yeah.
Everyone's out enjoying the good weather.
Yeah. I see you're standing in the sun here in the front.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye.
Good.
Good.
Yeah, very good.
Would you recommend it?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Has it improved since Pennies came?
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
And yourself, yeah. What age are you?
9.
Yeah. Would Pennies be one of your favourite shops? No.
Sports are right.
Do you think there's been an upturn since Pennies?
Yeah, there's more people in Bray now. A lot more people. I'd rather come to Bray now than go to Dundrum.
It's a lot handier.
Yeah, parking wise, everything.
Yeah. And where do you park?
Up in the car park. Yeah.
And what do you meet people down the town then?
Yes, you meet a lot of people around town. Yeah, that you know.
I like it. There could be a bit more, but I normally find everything that I need.
Yeah, it's good. Pennies has brought people back into the town.
It has, yeah. Tiny bit more, maybe.
Yeah. What shop could it do with for you now? You're you're full of style here
A
now.
nice shoe shop and a better Dunn's.
A better Dunn's. Okay, so like a bigger.
And I'd be very happy.
Like Dunn's with more.
Like that's a bit
small.
It's grand, yeah, but it's you know, limited.
Yeah, the two Dunn's too small.
But I do think, like, you know, it takes. I suppose, like, you have to look around, but I think it's great. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be.
It's. I mean, like, it's a sunny Saturday now here, and we're on the sunny side of the street.
Exactly. No better place to be.
So kind of positive there, Pat. Is that the kind of vibes you were getting?
Overall, very positive. Penny's has had a great impact on the town. I even spoke to Lizanne Malloy in our coffee shop, and she was very positive about Penny's. She said she had seen such an uplift in customers coming in and whatever. And you can see it on the streets. You can definitely see it on the streets.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's something that Bray Municipal District Council should be saying to potential people that would like to come in, that the footfall has gone up, that there's a very positive vibe on the main street, and they should be actually getting the statistics for that so that they can sell the vacant shops onto new shopkeepers, new shop owners. I mean, if you think about the range of shops that could be on the main street if you liked, and we haven't touched the halfpenny place in it. I mean, this Bray is known as the gateway to the Garden of Ireland. There's not one touristy shop in the whole place.
Is there not? No, there used to be, didn't there?
Yeah, there used to be. There used to be one down on Queensborough Road. I can't remember what the name of it was. But there's nothing. You know,
There used to be
there's
little
nothing to it.
trinket shops down on the Albert Walk.
Yeah. Nothing to attract a tourist or to give them a memory of Bray. The only place that I know is the card shop has little fridge magnets with photos of Bray and Bray
And
Head.
Bray Rock. I saw
Remember
Bray
Bray
Rock.
Rock.
I saw it down there the other day, actually.
The other day, did you?
Yeah, I did, down the street. I can't remember where it was.
Kill your teeth, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think, absolutely. The dentists love it. But you spoke with Pat Vance as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so Pat Vance, people call him a cobbler. He's a shoe repairer on the Florence Road.
But there were lots of shoe repairers,
Well, that's what he told me. I actually gave him a question. Here's a question for you guys. I said to him, because he told me he was from RD Street, and I said to him, name the 6 streets of Bray.
Main Street.
Main Street.
RD Street.
Yeah.
Maitland Street.
Maitland Street.
Yeah. Okay. He brought the railway to Bray.
Dargan Street. Dargan Street, very good.
Yeah. There's one where there used to be a castle.
Castle Street.
Castle Street. And there's one that's gone.
Back Street.
Back Street. That's
Back
the 6
Street.
streets of Bray.
Was Back Street behind Castle Street?
Yeah,
Yes.
behind Castle Street.
Yeah, it was where the houses were in the middle.
So there was Tom, opposite McCormick's pub there, or O'Sullivan's pub, was Tom Byrne's Bikes, where we all got our bikes.
That's right.
And behind that was Castle Street. And then opposite that was who had a horse in the window? Who was that one?
That was the
Saddlers. No, was that just
the farriers? He was a farrier.
There was a horse in the window down in Castle Street.
I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved that place.
No doubt our listener will tell us. But anyway, I spoke to Pat. Pat is semi-retired, and I didn't put all that into it, but he tells me that he keeps his hand in, doing 3 days a week. And I met up with him in the shop. Do you think Penny's has brought people to Bray?
It has brought people to Bray, but not as many as I thought it probably would. The fact I think that is still not totally finished yet, because there's supposed to be a cinema and stuff like that in it. It's a bit of a disappointment, but definitely that and the sports shop there, Sports Direct, I think it is, that they definitely have brought extra people to Bray.
Your father was here before you. It's a family business down through the generations, and of course, in terms of sustainability, you couldn't ask for more, because people are fixing up their shoes.
Well, that's what people think. But when I started out first, I was 14, and this shop is here since I think about 1960. So we're 64 years here between my father and myself. When I started off, people would generally only have 2 pairs of shoes, one for work and one for good wear at the weekends. That's not the case anymore, where particularly women would have 40, 50, 60 pairs of shoes now. So effectively the business has changed totally, and it's a different type of business to what it was. There was 10 shoe repairers in Bray when I started out first. 10 shops in Bray. I'm the only one left, and I only do 3 days a week here now. So that's
wow.
So
and
when I go, I don't think anyone will come behind me. I
Yeah.
don't think it's all about economies of scale. So it suits me at the moment. So I'm delighted to be working 3 days a week. Things have changed enormously.
Now, some people I've been talking to were saying about some of the condition of the outside of the shops weren't as kept as they should be.
When I was on the council, we'd done a whole survey. We actually painted every shop front in the town, including my own here. Painted it for free.
The government are talking about having people live over shops or whatever.
That, to me, should be where the government are targeting, because I know between Dublin and Urban and Bray, and even myself here, my building here, if the government give the proper incentives for over the shop residential, that there could be a huge boom overnight. I could see thousands of apartments coming on stream that have been probably not up to the modern standards, it would be the safest to say. But to be brought up to modern standards is going to take a substantial amount of money. And I think that if the grants were there for that, there would be absolutely a huge take-up. And what they're finding in Dublin now is that there's nobody living in the town centre. And what Bray would be the same. If you look at over the shops in Bray, there would be a huge pick-up, in my opinion anyway, if something like that came in.
So Pat Vance there talking to our own Pat Hannon, of course. 60 pairs of shoes. Have you got 60 pairs of shoes?
I do not. And I don't want to have 60 pairs of shoes, to be quite frank with you. What a waste,
but
you know? I mean, that really is crazy. But I know people that are in love with shoes, in fairness. I just hate shoe shopping.
That's more than one pair for every week of the year. Yeah. I mean...
But you know what I hate is the fact that everybody's wearing sneakers now. In Cork, when I lived in Cork in the 70s, they were known as Tackies. And I think they should be still known as Tackies because, my God, leather shoes are so much nicer. And if Pat goes, where am I going to get my leather boots fixed?
Well, it sounds like he sounds like he's the end of the line, Pat, doesn't it?
It sounds like he's the end of the line in terms of unless somebody comes in or else comes in, takes it over or whatever, you know, the
Somebody
shop.
could be trained. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there is a market there for it. And I'm sure the way things turn around, you know, Tackies are everywhere now, you know, with all the brand names and whatever. And
Yeah.
I just can't resist
I suppose
calling them that.
the thing about Tackies, right? You can't really repair them as such.
No, you can't. And so they're great, you know, because kids have to go and spend another €100 or 108. Have you seen the prices of some of them? Ridiculous prices for things that fall apart.
Okay, so the other thing about shopping in Bray, for everybody who shops in Bray, is when you go down, the banter that you get, the friendliness. And now I mentioned Liz Ann and her brother on the Quinsborough Road in Malloy's. The way they greet their customers when you go in. They know everyone.
Pat
You're welcome
is
to them.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Patrick in Malloy's is just amazing. He just makes anybody who walks through that door feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And Liz Ann is the same.
Now, if you go into, go into Dundrum, okay, it's all indoors, whatever, the big mega place, but you won't get people talking to you. You know, they'll just give you the stuff and whatever. Whereas, what is it about when you come down to the town? You meet people.
Of course, exactly.
Meet people, and you can chat to people. Like, I go to Malloy's the Butchers. They're on the Florence Road, and they'll give you a recipe.
They'll be giving you free meat after this plug.
And they'll be telling you. No, but I'm just saying that, and you know, have you ever queued up there for your turkey on a Christmas? It's hilarious. Like the line is actually hilarious, right? And everybody goes in and chats. So it's not just a shopping experience, it's actually a community experience.
So Pat did talk about living over the shop, okay? And as you walk around the main street and you look over, you can see the windows. There's nothing up happening over the shops. And he brought up a very interesting point about living over the shops. So Mark, that brings us to our next story.
Well, it does. And Leah, you were the one that had the chat with Kevin Murphy, whose father was Jack Murphy, right? And he's been already mentioned in the podcast earlier there by Freddie Moorhan, saying that it was the only place you could get cream on a Sunday.
On a Sunday morning.
But he was also famous for one other thing, wasn't he?
He was famous for his ham.
Indeed he was.
Everybody in Bray, where no matter where you're from, if you were getting ham, you know, for a treat, because it was expensive enough, that's where you'd go. You'd go to Jack Murphy's. Oh my God, you'd get up in the middle of the night for it.
So where is the shop? Okay, so just situate the shop for us.
The shop is on the main street, on the corner of St. Kevin's Square, actually.
Yeah.
St. Kevin's Square and the main street
opposite
there.
the Orchard Court.
Opposite the Orchard Court.
And then after Jack had it, because it was Harris's had it for a kind of a toy shop at one time.
Yes.
There was
It was a
something else
great
in it.
toy shop.
I think Holland's had it for a
They had
North
it as a
license.
North license
That's
for a
right.
while.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they had beautiful, beautiful stuff in it. But they sold the pub, and so the off license went as well.
So let's go back to a previous era and hear from Kevin Murphy and your little chat with him.
It was a grocery shop, or as they used to call it, grocery and provisions. It sold vegetables, fruit, cheeses, tinned goods, dry goods, your packets of Zip, your biscuits, and milk, of course. My father was a very courteous man, a very friendly man, and a very unassuming man.
I remember the coat.
Always the white coat.
The white
Yeah,
coat. Always
the
looked
white.
so professional.
Yeah, he trained, like he did an apprenticeship to become a grocer. And he did it in the home of Colonial, which was a big kind of department store in Ireland at the time.
But your father was famous for one thing in the town, wasn't he? Tell me about that, what it was.
He was famous for cooked ham. He got into cooking his own ham quite by accident, because he used to always buy his ham cooked from various different suppliers. And I can't remember the exact circumstances, but there was some kind of disruption in supply. And since he sold bacon, I think between himself and my mother, they said, why don't we cook our own? So what he used to do was he would get a leg of bacon, quarter of bacon, and he would, do the whole rolling up of it. This thing took probably about an hour to actually tie up with all the twine, and he did it by hand. And then it took 4 hours to cook. So each ham took 5 hours of solid attention. So there was a whole period of my life where the house was constantly, it smelled like Christmas, because it was always boiling. But people loved the ham.
I remember that ham.
Yeah.
I mean, I have never found ham as good as that,
No.
whatever he did to it.
I met my sister, who's older than me, some time ago, and she told a story about meeting a woman of a similar age who was from Bray. And the woman said to her, she said, I have a bit of a confession to make, she said. My mother used to send me to your dad's shop every week to get ham, sliced ham. And she said, the ham was so lovely that I used to take the centre out of each of the slices and eat it on the way home. And so when I got home, my mother didn't usually notice, but on this day she did. And she was disgusted. And she said, you take that back to Jack Murphy and you tell him I am not paying for ham with holes in it. And this woman said, and so I had to go back to your father's shop and hand him back the sliced ham that I had eaten and tell him my mother doesn't want this. And she said, do you know what your father did? He took the ham back, gave me my money, and there was no other questions asked. And she said, I have been guilty about that to this day. That's why I'm telling you. So it was famous, and it was lovely. The ham was always bought from Buttles of Enniscorthy, a quality supplier of really good meat. I couldn't resist it myself, and I lived with the stuff. And, of course, when he retired, it all stopped. But then my brother took it up, and he ran a cooked ham business from Kilkenny. And he supplied all the shops and supermarkets in Kilkenny with the same quality ham for years. The shop at that time was also a kind of bank, because he ran a credit system. We had what we called the books, and they quite literally were small little notebooks. And each notebook represented a different family. And people came down, or rather sent their kids down. Could I have a bottle of milk in a sliced pan, please? And could you put it in the book? And it went in the book. And then it got paid the end of the week. Sometimes, human nature being what it was, it didn't get paid at the end of the week. But that system supported people when they actually didn't have cash in their pocket. And that hasn't been replaced. There is no new way that gets done.
Yeah, it's which is an awful pity. Didn't they call it tick?
Oh yeah, or the slate.
Oh, the slate. I didn't know that. I
could
heard
get it on
tick,
tick,
but I never.
Or put it on the slate. You hear
Put it on
that
the
phrase
slate.
being used
Yeah,
also.
yeah. It's an awful pity, because people are stretched now and they can't.
Well, it was on the one hand it was highly altruistic. On the other hand, it was highly necessary for a shop to keep its customers, because that was the reality of the time, post-war Ireland. And a lot of people didn't have money, or they only had it, occasionally. The galling part might be sometimes, okay, it didn't happen very often, but it did happen, that you would have a book that hadn't been paid, but the person who owed you was next door in the pub, So it wasn't a perfect system. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to say he was Mother Teresa by any means. It was just the reality of how you had to do your business. Because if you weren't supplying credit, people would just go elsewhere. So there was a bit of, commercialism involved in it in itself. But it was a hugely beneficial system for a very many number of families. But it was great growing up in the shop because you were in the centre of the town, you were on the main street, we lived over the shop, so you got the life of the town all day long, and then you got it in the evening because all the pubs would open and, there'd be activity of a whole different type of life would be taking place. It still retains a look that I recognise. Now, I wouldn't recognise all of the shops, and that probably wouldn't matter to most people. They'd expect things to change, but I grew up for the formative part, 18 years of my life, and nothing changed on the main street. It was always the same, and they were all family run, and you knew the names of everybody. Vickers or, Allen's, the men's shop, or Napier's, the newsagents further down, or Mick Mohan's, the butchers, or, you just knew these Caprani's, Gary King. You just knew these. My mother knew all the hairdressers and the women's shops for fashion. So, maybe I was over-immersed in the notion of community, but I never moved away from this concept that I could replicate that. I never found that again. It was so rich, it was so full, and it was so... Now, it had this downside because you couldn't do a thing on the main street without it getting back to your mother. On the other hand, though, it was a wonderful community at the same time.
That's Kevin Murphy there, son of Jack Murphy, from Jack Murphy's shop on the main, formerly Jack Murphy's shop on the main street. And I think you enjoyed that chat, Leah, didn't you?
I did indeed. It brought back many happy memories for me. I suppose it was a time when there was an innocence about Bray too. When everybody knew everybody else, because I lived slightly off the main street, so not very far from where Kevin is talking about.
And savoured the ham, no doubt.
Oh, I think everybody savoured that ham. If you tasted that ham, you would never forget it.
One thing that we had to remove just for editing purposes, but a lovely story, he mentioned that his father became almost like a therapist for some people. His father and mother, in fact. That women would come into the shop and share their hardship, basically, in terms of their stories of their lives. Just to get it off their chest would be enough, and then they'd leave relieved. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And then, of course, Kevin becomes a therapist himself.
Yeah. I think that still goes on to a certain extent. When I was working in the volunteer centre, people often just came in and unloaded. And it is very good.
Wouldn't it be great to, in future, not too distant future, to walk down the main street and see people, the windows at night time, lit up with, you can see it at the apartments opposite McDonald's, the town hall, people living up over that. Wouldn't that be great to be seen all the way down the main street?
I think that would be fantastic, and it would make it so much safer.
But what would be required then to get that as an incentive? I mean, let's put it another way, what's stopping people from living over those shops?
I think if you had money available, the reason for you'd pick somewhere else is it's cheaper to do a house that's somewhere that the builder can park up, can do everything and whatever. Living over the shop has its own, problems trying to convert that to livable accommodation.
And there are standards these days.
And there's standards. So a bit like you see on Dermot Bannon's programme where there's grants for derelict houses, the government are actually working on plans to revitalise town centres or over the shops. There's a few initiatives in the pipeline.
But the over the shop initiative has been around for quite a while, because I remember when I was studying in the early 2000s, we did a whole essay on over-the-shop living around Ireland, and there was an over-the-shop incentive at that stage.
Yeah.
So it hasn't worked, in fairness, and yet you have a load of people.
If the incentives come, as Pat Van said, if the incentives come, people will start to look at it. And, I wouldn't mind looking at the window and looking at the world go by on the main street or whatever, how you're having your cup of tea.
A bit like Kevin. Yeah.
A bit like Kevin, yeah, exactly, yeah. Well, one of the things that's also, I mean, it's a negative, but nonetheless, it's a fact that there are so many more businesses closing down now on the main
But there's
street.
also shops opening.
There are, indeed,
In fairness now, I think the biggest shock to me has been the fact that it's been announced that the cinema is not going to open.
That's a shock,
I mean, that is a terrible shock. Look at the population. Young people need a cinema. Old people need a cinema. Kids need a cinema.
Now, the people that run the Mermaid will claim that they do have a cinema, and they do have a cinema.
They do have a cinema, but it's one night a week, right? And I think they're dead right to claim that, to be honest with you. But there's place for both. That tends to be, they do some commercial films, but they do a lot of more artistic movies as well. And I think there is a place for both, Do you remember necking in the back row?
Well,
she always brings everything back to
that's it,
necking,
romance.
doesn't she?
Yeah, romance, spotting talent, whatever. We will be doing an item on the cinemas because there were 3 cinemas.
I thought you said we're going to do an item on necking.
Yeah, we could do it.
Necking, I love that. It's
the discos of Bray, romances. You'd be into slow dancing, was you, Leah?
Oh no, not if he couldn't dance.
No, slow dancing.
No, I know, but I wouldn't be into slow dancing if I had to dance with somebody that couldn't dance.
He's talking about something else.
No, I'm talking about when they put on How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees and you'd hold somebody around the waist and vice versa. And you'd circle around each other.
No.
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 You're not into that.
No, not at all.
We're into that.
No, not at all.
Bring it back.
Bring it back.
Go on to cinema, bring that back.
Well, I think I would love to see. I would love to see somebody in Bray. There's enough money actually set up a cinema here.
Yeah, but I think overall, though, cinema attendances are down, though. So it is a challenge for someone setting up a business in Bray.
I remember one time in the Royal, and I have to be honest about
Please,
this.
no necking now. Go on.
No, there was no necking. I remember one time in the Royal meeting this fellow, and he went to the cinema every single afternoon because his mother couldn't afford, right, for him to have a babysitter all the time. So she sent him to the cinema. It was cheaper.
What's he doing now?
I have no idea what he's doing now. It wouldn't surprise me.
He's a Hollywood director.
Yeah.
He's directing films in Bray. There you go.
But you know what? It's sad that the cinema isn't going to, because the centre there, it had various iterations going from the field that it used to be to the, from a car park up to the centre. The trials and tribulations. It could be a whole podcast series, Mark, of how that centre got going. And
the black hole of Bray was one stage, wasn't it?
And people were just hoping that was the final piece of the jigsaw, that the cinema would go in there. And I feel for the young people. I do feel for the young people that, they like the pennies is there for them, obviously, and for everybody else. But the cinema would have been the icing on the cake for them.
I agree.
From what I know, we have 7 secondary schools in Bray. And that doesn't even take into consideration the Greater Bray area, And if you think about that amount of young people, and they're going into the cinema in Dundrum or Dunleary.
Okay, so there's been an update on the Cliff Walk. You can refer to one of the latest editions of The Bray People, the story by journalist Tom Galvin. On it, that it turns out there was various grants going a begging in the Department of the Environment for such improvements and maintenance for walks like the Cliff Walk. And one time the council did apply for it, got it, and never drew down the money. And then there was subsequent grants made available, and they didn't apply for them. So that's the front big story in the Bray People recently about.
And any suggestion as to why?
Well, that's the thing. People are perplexed why, if there was money going a begging for such things, it was raised in the Dáil that the council didn't apply for it and didn't. So if you don't apply, you can't get it.
But you'd need, in fairness, you would need to know exactly what the money was for.
Well, you know what? It's a story that keeps giving and giving. Huh?
It certainly is. I think the Bray People, I'm going to suggest that the Bray People wouldn't run it as a main headline if they hadn't done their due diligence on it. And perhaps we'll hear more. There's definitely going to be more.
Oh, yeah, well, I should certainly hope so.
Well, on the face of it, the local council don't look good in this instance, and I think that it's going to probably be something.
It's definitely going to be on the agenda, I'd say, for the next task force meeting that Simon Harris heads up. So they met maybe a month ago or so, just after the elections, and they're going to meet again. So let's see what they're going to do, because at that stage, the tenders are in for the engineering report, assessment, what has to be done, and then they're going to go to tender for the actual fixing up of whatever has to be done. So the pressure's on. It's not going away. The Friends of the Cliff Fork have a GoFundMe page. It's exceeded their initial target of 5,000. They've put up to 6,000. That's to buy equipment, insurance for what they're doing along the way. They're quietly working away at that back, as we had them on the show to tell us all about that.
Okay, good. Well, and I think we're kind of running out of time, aren't we? But we have solved one mystery today.
We started off with the controversy, as it was, over the bandstands, okay? Now, say we don't even have a band anymore in Bray. The St. Kevin's Pipe Band is gone. And they used to be down in the park, by the way, and they had their little house down there, gifted by Lord Mead to the people of Bray. The plaque was on the wall, and then it was taken down. But I won't, let's not go into that. Anyway, the bandstand controversy has been solved. Now, I consulted Mary Davies' book, That Favourite Resort, which is the kind of oracle on the Bray Seafront, the birth and the story of the Bray Seafront. If you want to get it out of the library, That Favourite Resort. And she only refers to 3 bandstands in it, Mark.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, technically correct that there were 3 bandstands at one stage. And Brian is technically correct as well that there were 6 bandstands at one stage. So can we leave it there?
I think we can leave the bandstand issue there. I think we've probably exhausted it, to be quite frank.
Don't be grandstanding.
I'd like to see it used a bit more, the bandstand that we do have, and I'd love to see the one down in the People's Park, which is one of the undiscovered resources of Bray.
The 7th bandstand.
Yes.
Okay. And on that note, goodbye until next time. Yeah.
Cheers.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Bray Talking Heads, stories from a seaside town. To contact the show, email braytalkingheads@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky at Bray Talking Heads. Bray Talking Heads. History, stories, opinions and conversations. A podcast for Brayites everywhere.